Family, listen carefully, because what I'm about to share with you can change the direction of your life. Too many people spend their days chasing something small, something temporary, something that was never meant to define them, a job. But God is not calling you to just find work. He's calling you to step into your divine assignment, your kingdom purpose, your God-given destiny. When God says, don't look for a job, He's not saying don't work. He's saying stop limiting yourself to the world's definition of success, security, and stability. He has designed you for something greater. When God says you were not created just to survive, He is reminding you that life is much bigger than paying bills, keeping food on the table, or making it to the end of the month. Those things are important, but they are not the reason you exist. You are not here simply to wake up, work, eat, and sleep. You are here because heaven deposited something unique inside you that only you can release on earth. The danger of living only to survive is that it shrinks you down to the size of your circumstances. It keeps you focused on what you lack, what you fear, and what you think you cannot do. But destiny enlarges you. Destiny forces you to think beyond your immediate needs and begin to ask, what impact was I designed to make? Who am I supposed to touch? What difference will my life leave behind when I am gone? Survival has a way of making people chase comfort instead of calling. Many people get stuck in jobs they hate, relationships that drain them, and routines that steal their joy, all because they are afraid of not having enough. They settle for less because they fear the unknown. But God did not create you to settle. He created you to soar. The Bible shows us repeatedly that whenever He calls someone, He stretches them beyond what they thought possible. Moses thought he could not speak, but God called him to lead a nation. Gideon saw himself as the weakest in his family, but God called him a mighty warrior. Survival told them they were small, but destiny told them that they were significant. When you choose survival, your vision narrows to your own needs. You wake up asking, how can I get through today? How can I make it to the weekend? But when you choose destiny, your vision expands to others. You begin to ask, whom can I help today? What difference can my gift make in someone's life? How can my obedience change the atmosphere around me? You stop living as though you are barely making it, and you start living as though you are sent on a mission. And here's the truth you are. You are heaven's answer to somebody's problem. You are the light in someone's darkness. You are the carrier of solutions this world desperately needs. Think of it like a seed. A seed was never created just to remain hidden in the soil, existing quietly underground. It was designed to grow into a tree that gives shade, fruit, and oxygen. If a seed lived only for itself, it would rot in the dirt. But when it surrenders to the process, it multiplies, it nourishes others, and it leaves a lasting impact on the environment. That is what your life is meant to be: planted, stretched, and grown into something that feeds and shelters others. Here's a simple example. There was a young man who worked long hours at a grocery store just to survive. He stacked shelves, carried boxes, and collected his paycheck, but inside he knew he was made for something greater. One day, while helping an elderly woman with her groceries, he noticed how lonely she looked. He stopped for just a moment to ask how she was doing. That 5-minute conversation turned into encouragement she desperately needed. The next time she came back, she brought a friend and introduced the young man as the one who gave me hope when I felt invisible. In that moment, he realized he was not created just to move boxes and earn wages. He was created to impact lives. That small act of purpose ignited a new direction in his life. He started volunteering at community centers, encouraging people, and eventually building a career around helping others find their value. That is the difference between survival and destiny. Survival keeps you focused only on your own needs. Destiny makes you aware of the needs of others and empowers you to bring change. God never intended for you to simply make a living. He designed you to make a difference. And when you step into that truth, life stops being about barely getting by, and it starts becoming about leaving a legacy. When God calls you, He does not call you to employment. He calls you to assignment. There is a profound difference between the two. Employment is what people can give you. It is a position, a title, or a paycheck that provides temporary security. But assignment is what God gives you. It is eternal, deeply personal, and connected to the purpose for which you were created. Too often we confuse the two, thinking that our identity is tied to the job we hold. But God never intended for your worth to be measured by your RA Sum or your monthly salary. Those things may sustain you for a season, but they do not define you. What defines you is the mission God has written into your DNA before you were even born. When you chase employment, you are chasing what man has to offer. When you embrace assignment, you are stepping into what heaven has ordained. A job can be taken away, assignments cannot. A job ends when a company closes its doors or when someone decides they no longer need you, but your God-given assignment remains with you as long as you are alive. That is why some people lose their jobs and fall into despair. They built their identity on employment, not on calling. But when you understand your assignment, you can lose a job and still walk in confidence because you know that who you are and why you are here cannot be taken from you. The beauty of assignment is that it gives meaning to the ordinary. You might be employed as a teacher, but your assignment could be to speak life into children who are neglected at home. You might be employed as a nurse, but your assignment could be to bring not only healing to bodies, but hope to hearts. You might be employed in construction, but your assignment could be to restore dignity to families by building homes where love can thrive. Employment is what you do. Assignment is why you do it. One feeds your pocket, but the other feeds your soul. This is why God warns us not to confuse the two. If you spend your life chasing only employment, you might gain money but miss meaning. You might secure a comfortable lifestyle but never experience the fulfillment of walking in purpose. But when you put your assignment first, even employment becomes a platform for your calling. You begin to see your workplace not just as a source of income, but as a mission field where you can release the gifts God has placed in you. Consider the story of a woman named Anna. She worked for years as a receptionist at a large office. From the outside, her job seemed ordinary, answering phones, scheduling appointments, greeting visitors. Many of her colleagues looked at the position as unimportant, even replaceable. But Anna saw her work differently. She recognized that her employment was simply the stage for her assignment. Every person who walked through that front door was someone she could impact. She chose to greet each visitor with warmth, encouragement, and genuine kindness. She prayed quietly for people as she handed them forms or directed them to their appointments. Over time, people began to notice something different about her. Some would stop to talk when they were discouraged. Others would share their struggles because they felt safe in her presence. One day, a coworker broke down in tears at her desk, overwhelmed by personal problems. Anna listened, comforted her, and reminded her that she was not alone. That coworker later said, "You're the reason I didn't give up." Anna was employed as a receptionist, but her assignment was to be a vessel of God's love in a place where people often felt overlooked. Her paycheck may have been modest, but her impact was immeasurable. She understood the difference between employment and assignment, and because of that, her life carried eternal value. That is what God is calling you to understand. Don't live for what man can give you, live for what God has entrusted to you. Don't reduce yourself to a title or a paycheck. Lift your eyes to the assignment written over your life. Employment may provide for your present, but assignment secures your legacy. When you walk in your assignment, you are no longer working for man. You are partnering with heaven. You are building something that cannot be erased, something that will echo beyond your lifetime. So the next time you think about your work, ask yourself not just, what is my job, but what is my assignment? Because that one shift in perspective can turn the most ordinary tasks into eternal acts of purpose. Security is one of the most deceptive comforts in life. It feels safe. It feels stable, it feels predictable, but often it is nothing more than a cage disguised as comfort. Many people settle for security because it promises them control. They know when the paycheck will arrive, they know what the routine looks like, and they know what tomorrow will bring. Yet, in that same place of predictability, their dreams die quietly. The problem with security is that it never asks you to grow. It never stretches your faith. It never demands that you trust God beyond what your own hands can manage. And though security feels like peace, it is often fear in disguise. Fear of failing, fear of being without, fear of stepping into the unknown. Destiny, on the other hand, requires courage. It asks you to take a step when you cannot see the whole path. It asks you to risk comfort for calling, to leave behind what feels safe in order to walk into what feels uncertain but is God ordained. The truth is that every person God has used powerfully has had to leave the comfort of security. Abraham had to leave his homeland without even knowing where he was going. Peter had to step out of the boat onto water that could not hold him unless Jesus did. David had to face Goliath with no guarantee of survival. Their destinies were unlocked not in their places of safety, but in the moments they dared to trust God beyond what was comfortable. The reason security is so tempting is that it promises survival, but God is not interested in you merely surviving. He is interested in you fulfilling your purpose. A life spent chasing only safety will never make history. People who settle for comfort rarely change the world. They live quiet lives, predictable lives, but also small lives. Destiny is never small. It is risky, it is stretching, it is uncomfortable, but it is also where miracles happen. The very things you pray for, breakthrough, abundance, influence, do not exist inside the walls of security. They exist on the other side of courage. Fear will always tell you to cling to the paycheck, to cling to the routine, to cling to what you can control. But faith will whisper, there is more. Faith calls you to obedience even when logic tells you to stay put. Faith calls you to walk into territory you have never seen before, to start projects you don't feel fully qualified for, to speak words that make you vulnerable, to build what has never been built. Faith pulls you away from what everyone else is doing because it sees something greater waiting in your future. Here is a simple but powerful example. A young man named Daniel worked in a bank for nearly a decade. The job was stable, the salary was steady, and his family felt secure. Yet inside, he carried a vision to start a community center for underprivileged youth in his city. Every day, he wrestled with the same question: should he keep the job that guaranteed safety, or should he step out into the unknown and risk everything for his dream? Security told him, stay where you are, don't be foolish, think of your bills. Destiny whispered, if not you, then who? If not now, then when? After months of prayer, Daniel made the decision to resign. He didn't have all the money he needed. He didn't have all the support he wanted, but he had a conviction that God was leading him. The first few months were difficult. He faced doubt, financial strain, and even criticism. But slowly doors began to open. Volunteers came alongside him, donations started to flow, and the center began to take shape. Today, hundreds of young lives are being transformed because one man refused to settle for security and chose to step into destiny. Had he stayed at the bank, he might have lived comfortably, but he would never have fulfilled his calling. That is what security does. It keeps you comfortable, but unfulfilled. Destiny, though risky, brings the joy of walking in God's perfect plan. When you choose destiny over security, you are declaring that you would rather trust God with the unknown than trust yourself with the predictable. You are saying that your life is too valuable to be wasted on safety alone. You are daring to believe that what God has placed inside you is worth the risk. In the end, security might keep you safe, but only destiny will make you significant. And significance is what you were created for. Inside every person, God has planted unique creativity and gifts that no one else on earth carries in the same way. These are not random abilities or hobbies. They are divine deposits placed within you for a purpose. Too often people underestimate what has been given to them, thinking their gifts are ordinary or insignificant. But what seems small in your eyes may be the very solution someone else is desperately waiting for. God has hidden treasures within you, ideas, talents, skills, and perspectives that cannot be duplicated by anyone else. The world has never seen what you carry in the exact way you carry it, and that is why your contribution matters. Many people spend their lives asking, who will hire me? Who will give me an opportunity? But the real question should be, whom am I called to serve? Your gifts are not just for your own survival, they are for the benefit of others. When you begin to view your creativity and talents as tools for service rather than tools for survival, everything shifts. Instead of waiting for a company, a boss, or a system to validate you, you start recognizing that your validation comes from the God who placed those gifts inside of you in the first place. Array summe may get you into a job interview, but your God-given gift can open doors that no array summe ever could. Think about it. The greatest breakthroughs in history did not come from people who were simply employed. They came from people who leaned into their creativity and released what was inside them. Inventors, leaders, artists, and reformers were people who dared to believe that what they carried had value. That same creative spark exists in you. It may express itself through words, through art, through problem solving, through leadership, or through compassion. It doesn't matter what shape it takes. It matters that you recognize it, develop it, and release it. The danger is when we bury our gifts out of fear or comparison. We look at someone else's ability and think they are more talented than me, so mine doesn't matter. But God did not design you to be a copy of anyone else. If you don't use your gift, the world misses out on something only you can offer. Scripture teaches that gifts make room for people. It is not position or status that ultimately elevates you, but your willingness to use what you already have. Let me give you an example. There was a young woman named Sarah who worked in a small office as an assistant. Day after day, her job was routine filing papers, answering phones, typing documents. On the surface, it seemed like a role with little room for impact. But Sarah had a natural gift for encouragement and creativity. She loved writing short notes that inspired people, and she had a knack for organizing things in ways that made life easier for others. Instead of keeping her gifts hidden, she began to use them quietly. She left encouraging notes on her coworkers' desks, helped redesign the office system to save time, and brought fresh ideas to team meetings. At first, no one noticed much, but over time, the atmosphere in the office began to change. People looked forward to coming to work because of the positivity she spread. The management noticed her creativity and promoted her to a leadership role. Later, she launched her own business focused on workplace culture and productivity, helping companies across the city. Sarah's RA Summe had little to boast of in the beginning, but her gifts made a way for her. Her creativity and ability to uplift others opened doors no job posting could have promised. If she had kept asking, "Who will hire me?" she would have stayed stuck in a small office forever. But by asking, "Whom am I called to serve with what I have?" she stepped into her purpose. This is the power of recognizing the gifts God has placed inside you. They are not accidents. They are not second rate. They are strategic tools for impact. When you stop minimizing them and start releasing them, you step into alignment with your destiny. Doors will open, opportunities will come, and people will be touched, not because of a title or a job, but because you had the courage to use what God gave you. You are a carrier of solutions the world has not seen yet. Somewhere, someone is waiting for the creativity locked inside you. Somewhere, a problem exists that only your gift can solve. So stop doubting yourself and stop burying your talent. Your gift is not meant to collect dust. It is meant to shine, to serve, and to make a difference. When you begin to understand that your work is worship, it changes everything about how you see your daily life. Many people think worship is only what happens on a Sunday morning, lifting hands in church, singing songs, or praying with others. But worship is not limited to a building or a moment. True worship is a lifestyle, and one of the most powerful ways we worship God is through the work of our hands. Whatever God calls you to build, lead, create, or pioneer is not just labor to earn money. It is an offering to Him. When you approach your work with this mindset, the ordinary becomes sacred. The desk you sit at becomes an altar. The classroom, the hospital, the construction site, the kitchen, the marketplace, all become places where you minister to God through the way you serve, the excellence you bring, and the attitude you carry. Work done in obedience to God is not just activity, it is devotion. When you show up with diligence, integrity, and love, you are not just completing tasks, you are honoring the one who gave you the ability to do them in the first place. This perspective dismantles the lie that only preachers, missionaries, or church leaders do real ministry. The truth is, your daily assignment is your ministry. The workplace is often the greatest mission field because it's where you interact with people who may never step into a church. How you treat your coworkers, how you respond under pressure, and how you handle responsibility all become testimonies of the God you serve. When you see your work as worship, You stop chasing man-made titles and start caring more about obedience to God's purpose for you. It also changes how you measure success. The world measures success by position, income, and recognition, but God measures success by faithfulness, obedience, and impact. A person working behind the scenes with integrity and passion for God's glory may be doing far more in his eyes than someone in the spotlight chasing applause. When you understand this, you are freed from the pressure of comparison. You no longer need to prove yourself to others because your focus shifts to pleasing the one who entrusted you with your assignment. Think about the excellence of creation itself. When God formed the heavens and the earth, the stars, the seas, and humanity, he did not do a sloppy job. He called it good. He worked with beauty, order, and detail, and then rested satisfied with what he had made. If we are made in his image, then our work should reflect his character. Whether we are writing, teaching, designing, healing, or building, when we do it with excellence, we mirror his nature. That excellence is not for our pride, but for his glory, because people see him through what we create and how we live. Here's an example that illustrates this truth. A man named David worked as a janitor in a high school. To many, it was considered a low status job, something that barely got noticed. But David didn't see it that way. Every morning, he prayed over the hallways as he cleaned them. He spoke blessings over the classrooms while he emptied trash cans. He greeted students with kindness and encouraged teachers who were stressed. Over the years, countless students said his words kept them going during hard times. Teachers often found peace in his presence when everything felt chaotic. One day, during a graduation ceremony, the principal publicly honored him, saying, "David has done more to shape the character of this school than anyone else. He had no title, no spotlight, and no glamorous paycheck, but his work was worship, and through that, lives were transformed." That is what it means to see your work as worship. It's not about how much money you make or how important others think your role is. It's about the heart you bring, the obedience you walk in, and the excellence you choose because you know who you're ultimately serving. The Apostle Paul put it this way: whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord, not for human masters. That means your true boss is not your manager, your company, or even your clients. It's God himself. When you grasp this, even the most ordinary tasks gain extraordinary meaning. Folding laundry for your family becomes worship. Serving customers with patience becomes worship. Writing reports with honesty becomes worship. Leading a team with humility becomes worship. In every moment, you can honor God by doing your best and doing it with love. So don't diminish your work by thinking it's insignificant. Don't let the world's labels make you think only certain roles are holy. Every assignment given by God is sacred when it is done with the right heart. Your workplace is not just a job site, it's your ministry field. Your tasks are not just duties, they are offerings. And your obedience in doing them with excellence, faith, and love is the truest form of worship you can give. When God gives you a vision, he also gives you the provision to fulfill it. This truth is one of the most freeing and powerful realities you can ever embrace. Too often, people live as if their only concern is survival, paying bills, keeping food on the table, and making sure they can get through the week. While God cares deeply about those needs, his intention has never been for you to live with your eyes only on survival. He is a father of abundance, not scarcity. And when he places a vision in your heart, he takes responsibility for supplying everything required to bring that vision to life. Jobs can come and go. Employers may change their minds. Markets can collapse. But divine resources are not dependent on economies, managers, or human systems. They flow from heaven's storehouse, and heaven does not run out. That is why those who live according to vision always outlast those who live only for survival. Survival keeps you worried about how things will happen. Vision keeps you confident because you know who is behind it. When God gives you a dream, it may look impossible, but it comes with an unseen guarantee. He will back it up with provision at the right time. This is where faith comes in. Many people hesitate to step into their vision because they cannot see the resources yet. They ask questions like, where will the money come from? Who will support me? What if it doesn't work? Those are survival questions, and they shrink the power of faith. Vision-driven people, however, ask a different question. If God gave me this assignment, can I trust Him to fulfill it? Faith shifts your eyes away from limited resources to an unlimited source. The moment you stop worrying about how and start trusting who, you are free to take bold steps forward. God does not provide ahead of time in order to make you comfortable. He provides in the moment to strengthen your trust. If you had every resource in advance, you would never need faith. That's why He often waits until you take the first step of obedience before He releases what you need. It's not about whether you can afford the vision. It's about whether you can trust Him enough to start. History is filled with people who stepped out with almost nothing, but as they obeyed, doors opened, resources came, and lives were changed. Survival will always try to convince you to lower your dreams, to play it safe, to settle for what you can see. Vision challenges you to lift your eyes, to believe for more, and to walk on waters you've never tested. The God who calls you is the God who equips you. He doesn't give you a vision so you can be tormented by lack. He gives you a vision so He can display His glory by supplying everything necessary in ways you could never orchestrate yourself. Here's an example to make this real. A woman named Maria had a burning vision to start a shelter for women and children escaping abusive homes. She worked a modest job and barely had enough money to cover her own expenses. Every time she thought about the vision, she felt overwhelmed. There was no way she could afford to purchase property, hire staff, or fund programs. For years, she dismissed it, telling herself, maybe this dream is too big for me. But the vision never left her heart. Finally, she decided to act on faith. She began by renting a small house and opening the doors to just 2 women in need. She didn't have all the answers, but she had obedience. Within months, something amazing happened. Local churches began donating furniture and food. Volunteers showed up to help. A business leader heard about her shelter and offered to cover the rent for a year. A lawyer provided free legal support. Eventually, city officials connected her with grants designed for nonprofits like hers. What had seemed impossible when she thought only about her own resources became possible once she realized it wasn't about her provision. It was about God's provision. Today, that small shelter has grown into a thriving organization helping hundreds of women and children rebuild their lives. Maria's vision was far beyond her own capacity, but it was never beyond God's. This is the difference between living for survival and living for vision. Survival limits you to what you can manage. Vision frees you to what God can provide. When you anchor yourself in this truth, fear loses its grip. You stop calculating your dreams by your bank account and start measuring them by God's promises. You realize that if He spoke it, He will fund it. If He gave you the assignment, He will send the people, the resources, and the opportunities. So don't shrink your vision to fit your resources. Let your faith stretch to fit God's resources. He is not a God of barely enough. He is the God of more than enough. Stop asking how and start trusting. Ooh, jobs may end, money may fluctuate, but divine provision never runs dry. If God gave you the vision, you already carry heaven's guarantee that provision is on the way. So stop begging for the world to validate you with a job and start stepping boldly into the assignment God has placed on your life. Remember, when He says, don't look for a job, He's saying, look for your calling, look for your purpose, look for your kingdom assignment. The world doesn't need another employee. It needs a kingdom builder. The world doesn't need more job seekers. It needs vision carriers, risk takers, and destiny shakers. So today, lift your head, open your heart, and declare, I am not defined by a job. I am defined by God's calling on my life. I will walk in faith, not fear. I will pursue destiny, not just security. And I will live not for survival, but for significance.